Welcome to the Lady Up America podcast. I'm Diane, Canada, your host. I am so glad you're here today. Thanks for tuning in. I can promise you that today is going to bless your socks off. You are in for a real treat. You're going to meet my good friend, Mary McCrary, today. And our title today is Beauty from Ashes. Be right back.
Around this town, lady up around this town, victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up, lady up, lady up, lady up.
All right, ladies, welcome back. I can't tell you how much it's going to bless you today. This woman has blessed my soul so much. I have had the pleasure in my life of going into the women's prison here in Tennessee and teaching entrepreneurship classes. But I want to tell you, I didn't just go in teaching them how to build a business. We would work with women who were within 1 to 3 years of being released and teaching them how to build a business of their own, giving them something to look forward to when they come out. You know, when people re-enter society after being incarcerated, it's really difficult to get a job oftentimes. It's really difficult for them to get on their feet. I wanted to teach them entrepreneurship through this great program we had called BEST, and maybe they can't come out right away and start that business, but it gives them something to reach for. It also helps them understand business from the employer's perspective, helps them become much better employees, and gives them a lot of great skills that they can apply no matter what it is that they come out and do. But I want to tell you, it was so much more for me than about just teaching business. It was about ministry. And one thing I have learned in my own business and in working with these beautiful women is that the only thing that makes the difference between somebody succeeding and someone ending up right back in there again in a revolving door is a heart change. And I don't want to give too much away today, but this woman exemplifies the heart change and the ministry being ministered to from behind bars. You are just not even going to believe her story. So please welcome to the show my friend, Mary McCrary. Hi, Mary.
Hey Diane, how are you doing
Hey,
today?
I am I am good. I'm so happy to see you, sweet girl. Thank you for being brave and coming on here and joining me today. I know this is a little out of the comfort zone, but you've been you've been in the news some lately. You've been in the news a lot lately. So hopefully you've gotten some practice.
I have been in the news and media a lot lately, and so it is getting a little easier and more comfortable.
Good, good, good. I'm so glad. Mary, okay, let's I want to kind of tease this a little bit because I don't want to give away the whole story yet, but I want to tease it a little bit for folks listening because I want you guys to listen to the end because this is where the gold is at the end of this story. Mary has gone from being incarcerated to literally being on national news. She has had her story has been uh, shared nationally on Good Morning America, on Inside Edition, I think it was. You've been making the rounds on media. So we're gonna get there. But let's start at the beginning. Even before you and I met, we hear a lot about, prison reform, criminal justice reform right now in our culture. And like I said, I don't think that that's possible without a heart change. Tell us a little bit about your experience and let's just kind of walk this out for listeners today. What was your life like growing up and how did you end up in there to begin with?
So growing up, my father, was a preacher, and I had a lot of traumas and abuse growing up. Lived in a terrible, just not a great environment, and it was probably one of the most devastating things you could think of for a child. So growing up with that, finding out that, some of these things shouldn't be happening and then saying something and no one listening. So then I turned to drugs just to numb all that because I didn't know and I wasn't loved and nobody wanted me and I was just useless and broken at 11 or 12 years old.
Mm.
So I started doing drugs and running away. And then I got pregnant and married at 16 and had two boys by 18 and divorced. And
Wow.
so, yeah, that was rough. It was hard, but I worked. I the job that I had found worked with me and my kids, and so, it worked out, but then again, it gets hard, and I have to go back to what all I know. Because I dropped out of school at 10th grade, so I had no education. I'm a young kid with 2 kids, and that lifestyle with drugs and money is what you kinda go back to. So just to survive, that's all I knew is I had to survive and by any means necessary. And all those terrible choices, ugly truths eventually led me to prison.
Yeah. Yeah. The pain's gotta go somewhere, doesn't it? You
Yeah.
know, when you're a child, you have no coping skills. You don't know which way's up.
No.
I heard first of all, I wanna say, we're never excusing
No.
or justifying criminal behavior or bad choices. That's not what this is that's not what I'm intending to do here.
No.
But we need to at least explain
Yeah.
how it comes about, you know? I heard a woman on a radio show one time when I was going through a lot of traumas in my life and trying to survive, and you're in that survival mode and you're just you don't realize you're making choices. You are, but you're just kind of going to the next safe place in your mind, whether that's emotionally or physically. And I heard this radio personality. Her name was Dr. Laura. If anybody remembers out there, Dr. Laura, and she just was very tough on people that would call in. And she says, well, you're making. I called in one day, and she says, well, you're making these choices. And I just remember thinking, like, it just didn't sit right in my spirit. I'm like, but I'm not. you know, I was, but I wasn't consciously making
Right.
those choices. Did you find that to be the case?
So, yes, my choices that I had were not choices that necessarily other people had. My choice was feed my kids or let them starve. And all I had was no education. I'm a kid. And so that's okay. Then this is what I had to do because I don't see any other choices. I didn't have anybody to help me. I didn't
Yeah.
have anybody, oh, here, come live here and go to school and take care of your kids and all that. So
Mhm.
it's like you just kind of unconsciously be like, this is what I have to do because I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like you have a buffet of options in front of you.
No.
When you just haven't been exposed to other things, you're just kind of doing you're just kind of doing what you know to do next, and we don't have the mentality, I guess, yet, or the awareness
Yeah.
of other things being available to us. I've lived that too, I know. So you end up incarcerated, I'm assuming because of the drugs.
Yes.
And one thing I will say, and you know this too, Mary, that whenever I would come in and teach, I never looked up any of your crimes.
Right.
Before I would come teach the class, I intentionally did that because I didn't want to have any preconceived notions of anybody that I was meeting in the class. But this is before you and I met. How long had you been incarcerated, and how many times did you go through the revolving door of that?
So I was in and out of jail, never really like anything too serious. I think I did 6 months one time. And that was
Mhm.
for what I ended up in prison for. And just like stupid things, no license. Like I never even had a license, but I had to drive the kids. And so you get pulled
Yeah.
over, you get a ticket for driving on no license, then it's revoked. So that was a lot of me going in and out of jail was a lot to do with driving. And then I had a DUI, and then I got the aggravated burglary charge. And a few years later, I got another DUI, and that's what ultimately sent me to prison. Because again, I'm just trying to maintain and take care of the kids, and just and on top of the addiction with all this,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was massively and heavily in active addiction, and it
Yeah.
was a dark, dark place. It's a terrible place to be at.
Yeah.
Like it's
When you
hopeless.
were in Go ahead.
Oh, it's just it's hopeless, and you feel worthless and useless, and you don't see a way out. But all you do
Yeah.
is like, I have to do this, and then whatever happens after that, it doesn't even matter. And you're numb to any feelings to the world.
Mm. I guess that's a protective defensive mechanism that you develop, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to feel those worthless or I'm a failure. I can't do this. I can't support my kids. I can't provide for them. I can't like, it gets really dark, really scary, really lonely. It's not a great place. I wouldn't want
It's
to
like a
go back.
perpetual Mhm. like a perpetual cycle of darkness. So then that leads you to make another bad decision and then you feel worse and then it's like a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
You're just, constantly on it.
Yeah, you keep going on that wheel and it's just a spiral out of control.
Yeah. Did you find that the other women that you were incarcerated with, was their story similar?
I would say over 90% of the women I've encountered they have some kind of trauma and they numb those feelings and they don't want to feel it. And then it's just that cycle. I don't want to feel that. I don't know how to do anything different. And it's that wheel again, and they don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, let me just say I'm so sorry you went through that. I'm so sorry for every woman who might be listening who's experienced childhood trauma of any kind, whether that was sexual, abusive, physical, emotional abuse, whatever it is. No child should have to go through that, and that's not God's design, and it's so paralyzing in so many ways, and so I'm so sorry that you had to go through that as a kid. And for every woman listening, I'm sorry if you did too, and I did too. So I really do understand. Um, one thing that I have learned though is that even before we reach out our hand to Jesus, He's with us in that, crying with us and holding us through it. Um, and he can take that terrible incident or series of incidents, whatever it might be, and he can bring good out of it. The good it's not good that it happened to us, but he can bring good out of it, which is why today we're calling this beauty from ashes. And that's his promise to us in the Bible. And we'll get there in just a few minutes. But we when those of us on the outside come into a prison to volunteer, to help, what would you say from your perspective? What goes through your mind when people are coming in to try to volunteer and help, especially when you're in that dark place and as a hamster on a wheel?
So for some, it's like, oh, y'all are just doing this to show off, or it's for some kind of money or grin or whatever. But then there's some like you who you can just tell genuinely care and want to help somebody get out of that dark place and just show light and love and what God really is. And that's important in there. Very important.
Yeah, I would thank you for that. Well, I wasn't fishing for that, but I just kinda wanted to understand, like, what it's like for you guys on the inside, because there are a lot of people who come in and wanna help. A lot of people that come in all different kinds of capacities to help in the prisons. And I think you're right. I think some of them are doing it for maybe different motivations that aren't as pure, but do you what did you find with the women? Like, what would be your conversations when you would go back, to the pods, to the cells, or when you would talk with each other? Were they kind of mocked and were those people mocked, or were they more like, what would be the conversation?
And so that would again, like, because you can, well, as us being inside, you can generally tell who's really wants to be there and who doesn't. So if you're really there to help and to encourage, it's like, oh my God, I love her. I can't wait till she comes back. I can't wait to see. It's like we get that light and we want more of it. And it's a really good thing. And so we end up talking about that, which leads to talking more things about, hey, she loves God. Let's draw that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But then the people that you didn't pick that vibe up from, what would be the conversations there?
Well, they would not be
Let's be
fabulous.
honest.
It would be like, yeah, they're just here just for show, and nobody would care to go back to them. And it just makes you feel like they're just there to pity you and maybe make you
Mhm.
feel that. And you feel that way. The women will feel like we're pitied and like we're just beneath them, and it's not a
Really?
great feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was my suspicion.
yeah.
To help us understand what it's like on the inside. Walk us through a typical day and the thoughts that go through your head, the conversations that go on with you and the other inmates. What's that like?
So on a typical day, you have to stand up for head count at like I think it's 5 a.m. and you have to get out of your bunk. Which if you're on the top bunk, you have to jump down, and that's terrible because a lot of people fall and get stitches. But so then,
Really?
yes, like to jump up out of your bed because they'll beat on the doors and like get up and yell at you. So you have to jump up, and the ladder is like a straight down thing. And a lot of people trip coming off of it because a bunch of women are on, depression medicine or anxiety medicine. And it's like when you wake up, you're drowsy. And yeah, I've known a few that ended up with stitches.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that's how your day
That's just
starts.
something you would never think of, and at 5 AM,
Y-
they're banging on they're just violently waking you up at
Yes.
5 AM.
Yeah. Not all of
Wow,
them. And believe it or not, some of the guards are understanding and compassionate, but they are all not. And so
okay.
just depending, that could be your day. So this is how you wake up, and you get woke up like that, and then you start your day. And whether you work or in a class, a program, it just depends. And you have to stand in line, make sure your shirt is tucked in. Depending on the day, there's no talking on the yard, or there is talking on the yard, and it's never the same. The only constant about that is it always changes, like daily.
Wow.
Yeah, so it can get a little frustrating. For the most part, who I talk to, we're like, well, we put ourselves here. This is just part of our consequences. And so we deal with it. Some women are not there yet. And then so they want to rebel and lash out because that's all they know. And authority is not something they take well.
Yeah.
And so then you just go to your class or program or job, and you stay there in that room. And then it's not like you could go to the bathroom, but sometimes it's only at certain times. So
Mm.
that's kind of controlled. And then you finish that and go back for a head count, or you stay in your class for another head count, which can be grueling because, believe it or not, apparently it's hard to count. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. And then you will go back. I think it's 3:30, or I believe it's like 3:30. You go back to your cell again and do another head count, standing. And then after that head count, you have dinner. And again, you have to wait at the door, go in a line, go to the dinner hall, which is the MDR or the chow hall, and stand in that line for God knows how long because sometimes they run out of food or it's not ready, and you have a literally like 10 minutes to eat. So you learn to scarf it down and go.
Mm.
And then,
What's the food like?
oh gosh, it does on the package say for inmate and animal consumption only, not for human
Yeah.
beings.
I saw that. I actually saw that when I was there, not for not fit for animal consumption or
Yeah,
not fit for human consumption. Yeah, so not exactly now, again, this is prison, we don't
yeah.
expect it to be, a gourmet meal,
No.
but but it's pretty bad.
Yes. Some of the stuff is most of it's there's like were some meals you just didn't eat. And if you didn't have like the commissary or anybody put money on your books, you just didn't eat.
Yeah,
And it was pretty rough. And then there would
yeah.
be bugs in it. And yeah,
Oh, really?
it could get really rough.
Mm.
But
Oh my goodness. Whew. So you finished dinner. What were the so go ahead. So you finished dinner and then what happens after that?
so you go back to your unit, and either you just stay on your pod for the rest of the night, or if there's like a church program or you're in a class, you go to that and then straight back to your pod. And then you're locked in there, and then they do head count again, and then lights out.
Okay. So being in programs and things like that was a good thing, like, it kinda gave you an escape from the cell or the pod or the cell then, huh?
Yes, yes. And the ones I took were great. So it makes you feel like at least you're a human being because you don't feel like that
Yeah.
a lot when you're in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the case. And what are the pods like and what are the cells like?
So I think there's 32 cells in one pod, and they each hold two women. I think it's something close to that. And then there's, I don't know, maybe 5 showers. If you're lucky, 3 of them work, and you share
Wow.
those with everybody. And then there's like a few tables and 4 phones that are inside of it. And for the most part, women are just catty and bitter, and so it's just really a lot of yelling. There's not really a lot of fighting in the women's prison. Now there is some, but it's not. It's just really a lot of stress, and it's a lot of women, and everybody gets a little frustrated with each other at times because you're stuck with them in close quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can't get out. If somebody's yelling at you, you just have to stand there and make your choice what you want to do after that.
Mhm. And how about the guards? Were there guards that were abusive, or was that, what was that like? Because we hear about, on the outside, we hear about guards sexually assaulting women, or we hear about, drugs getting in through the guards, things like that. So tell us what goes on there.
Yes, to both of those.
Yes to both.
Yeah, so there's definitely some guards, and some of them were in their higher up of command, and you could do things to get out of product. And the big thing when COVID hit, they shut the prison down. Like there was no visitation, there was no teachers, volunteers. Nobody could come in but the staff. But yet,
Mm,
girls and women are in there overdosing and dying. So it's coming in through the guards. It's a huge money racket, and it's disgusting, but that's a real thing.
yeah. Yeah, we suspected that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so you would come out. What would be the challenges when you would come out of prison? Like, why would you, you already shared some of them. You would maybe get out and have a hard time getting a driver's license, end up back in there because of that. But tell us about some of the hardships about getting on your feet afterward when you would come out. Why would you end up back in there again?
So coming out, if you don't have family, if you don't have support, if you don't have money, if you don't have a license, a social security card, a birth certificate, you can't even get a job. So just these little stupid things that nobody even thinks about, that's the hugest deal. And somebody's coming out life because they have to have it. You have to have an ID or a license to get a job, social security card. If you don't have a car, if you don't have anybody supporting, you don't have a family, you're lonely, you have no money, you have nowhere to go, you have nothing to do. So what else do you do is what you know.
Yeah, you revert back to what you
Yeah.
knew before.
Because
Yeah.
that's all you have.
Now, unless you're coming across the border these days, and then you get a, you know, room and board and a car and a cell phone and a you know, I have to laugh or I'd cry. But yeah, we have our own citizens who've done their time and they're coming out and they're trying to get on their feet and can't. You would send me letters. So
Yeah.
I came in and started teaching you. I don't remember what year it was, but it's been several years back now.
Yeah.
And I remember coming in and I was so drawn to you. There were you and one other woman in the class, all the women that I really, had a heart for, but you and this one other woman, Michelle, y'all really captured my heart, but y'all were my toughest nuts to crack. You were very, very hard to crack. I can remember for like half the semester, you wouldn't even look up at me. I could never even see your eyes. So, but eventually you came around and we formed this really special bond. And when you when you came out, I had so much hope for you because I always knew you had so much potential. And then I got this devastating letter from you. And then I was walking across the yard one day and I bumped into you. And I just remember being so sad. Like I just was like, no, not Mary. I so had expected you to come out and just thrive. And I know that you really tried. I know you really tried, but one of the things that you said in your letter that broke my heart is you said, "At least I know where I'm gonna eat. At least I've got a place to lay my head." You didn't have to make those hard decisions on the outside. And I just want you to speak to that for a minute if you don't mind.
Yeah, I did try very hard, and I didn't have that, family. I mean, I had a family and, I have my children and they loved me, but they're children.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard when you can't get a job or you can only get a job that you make $7.25 an hour and then nobody writs you because you're a felon. And
Yeah.
so then here comes the brokenness and the worthlessness and the hopelessness and the uselessness. And it's a dark place and there's no light and there's nothing. And it's like, well, I do know what I can do and at least sleep in my car and eat a meal or be high and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And that's just where it goes back to because there was
Yeah.
no support. And, I was broken,
Yeah.
very damaged.
So then, you have a transformation and again, and I heard this too from other women that have been incarcerated. Eh, Michelle, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying that, she's been in and out, in and out, in and out her whole life, but the difference this time between both of you was Jesus.
Gee.
So tell us about that.
So I started questioning God, like just his whole existence. If he was even real, because I was really trying to do right. And I thought, I had a relationship with him, but I didn't. And
Mm,
then one day he was like, just let me show you. And he just gave me this vision. God, it was absolutely terrifying. I mean, it was this dark place that there was no love, no thought, just void of everything. And he was just like, "This, it's your choice. It's always your choice, and it's always our choice." He's like,
mm,
"Hey, this is your final choice." So I was going down a really bad path, and he's like, "Or just take my hand and let me bring you home." And
mm.
I gave him my heart. I went and turned myself in and went to prison and have just built this relationship with him. And look what he's doing, because it's all him. It's all Jesus, and I just
Yeah,
love him. And now I get to help people and show people that change is real. God is real. There's always hope and nothing's impossible.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He is the light of the world, and I know it sounds, might sound corny to some people listening, but that is the difference.
It,
That is the difference maker, is when our hearts, when we accept Jesus and he lights up all those dark places, he drives that darkness out, and it is the only way. It is the only
oh,
it's the only way.
yeah.
Like, there's no law we can put on the books, there's no prison reform, program that we can have that's gonna fix this. Is only Jesus can
Yes.
heal a heart and bring someone into their full potential.
Yeah. And boy, does he do it.
He does it, he
Yeah.
sure does. So, since you came out, and oh my gosh, I luckily you weren't in very long this last time.
No.
How long total from the time you very first went to jail until you were released, how long total were you in and out of prison?
I would say 4 or 5 years total with jail and prison.
Okay. So now you're out,
Yeah.
and I've been staying very close to you, watching you. What has God done in your life since you came out?
So he took me first to T Palm, because I remember praying, like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And he was just like, T Palm. And I was very hesitant at first to go there because I didn't do I never done a halfway house, and it was in Nashville and I'm not from here. But I went there and it gave me that place I needed, the support that I needed, the hope that I needed to just sit down, get on my feet, get a job, have a safe place to live. And while I was in the prison, I took that Persevere coding class. So I learned front end coding. So while I'm at TPOM,
And
they
tell us
send
what
me,
TPOM what does
oh,
TPOM stand for those who don't know?
yes, it's Tennessee Prison Outreach Ministry. And
Okay.
it's a transition home that people coming out of incarceration can come to and have a safe place to live and be loved on and kind of create a family. Because a lot of us didn't have that and don't have that because those bridges have been burned.
Yeah.
But they did that for me. And so THEI, the Tennessee Higher Education Initiative, they helped me stay in Nashville State. They helped me get in Nashville State while I was in prison. So I did a semester in there. So I got to TPOM. Doing, on working, college, and then Persevere sends me, this application for an internship at Princeton University. So I'm like, I'm never going to get that. And I'd filled another one out for some other internship or something. And I was like, well, that one might be more reasonable. But I got an email back and I didn't get that. So I filled out the application for Princeton and they were like, hey, you're accepted. We want you to come here. And I went to Princeton University for the whole summer.
Okay, let's back up for just a second. So, being being at TPOM and having, like you just said, an opportunity to just rest for a minute and kinda get your bearings, and they would help you, I'm assuming, with, helping you get your license and helping you kinda get on your feet, at least give you the starting points that you needed to get on with your life, just a safe place to lay your head at night. How
Yes.
valuable was that in hindsight now?
I would not be here today doing what I'm doing without that because
Yeah,
I didn't have anywhere to go. And that's a whole stress. And you can't plan for anything if you don't even know where you're sleeping.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they provided case management and counseling and therapy, which was is very helpful just to overcome all
Okay.
those traumas and heal from it. and
Yeah.
they help you with food and clothes and, yes, license and family reunification. It's just they have the whole wraparound service, and so it was really great for me that I know that I had people that had my back. They were supporting me and
Yeah.
encouraging me that, "Hey, you can do this," because some days were not easy,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was I wouldn't be here without that. It really
Yeah,
changed my life.
and they are a faith-based
Yeah.
organization too, so it's okay to
Gosh,
pray
yes.
and to that's very much incorporated. I know you took me through there. I'm gonna show everybody some pictures here, and this is the chapel room that, you guys would have church in on Sundays, and you said it was used for lots of different things.
Yes.
Um, so it was pretty amazing where they were able to kind of bridge that gap for you from the incarceration
Yeah.
to beginning your life. Okay, so now you're going to Princeton, and I remember you telling me that, and we were both just, "What? What?" We were just so excited. So you go up there and you do an internship and tell us what Princeton was like.
Oh gosh, it's unbelievable. I did the internship for computational biology and psychology, learned more about coding and Python and how to analyze data and research. And just the people there were so kind and none of it mattered. Nothing where I came from, any of that mattered. I didn't always feel like I was supposed to be there, but they made you feel like you are supposed to be here and take full advantage of it. And so I did. I took more class, any class I could get in there, I took. And they were just so
Oh.
kind, and it was a once in a lifetime experience. I'd never been to college. I didn't graduate high school. And so it was just like I got to live on campus and live in a dorm room. And that was a little rough sometimes because I'm older, but it was so wonderful. And they took me to the beach for the first time because I'd never seen the ocean until July.
Oh.
And they were like,
Oh,
"In the
wow.
ocean, we're taking you," and they did. So that was it was amazing.
Wow. And all of this, you can track this back, all of these beautiful opportunities that started presenting themselves. You can track this back to when you gave your heart to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
every
life
bit of it.
changer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and, oh
Yeah.
gosh, he just and all he wants is your heart. He just wants you to love him because he's never left me. Looking back over my whole life, he has never, not one time, left me.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's precious, and he doesn't.
Mm.
He's there. I heard somebody say this, and I'm saying this on a lot of my shows lately, so if you've heard it before, those of you listening, it's okay. It bears repeating. Um, we need to understand that God is not angry at us,
Mm.
that no matter what it is that we've done, he's not like sitting up there on some celestial throne waiting to cast us down to hell. I think a lot of people think, "Oh, well, if I don't do this, that, and the other, then God's going to throw me in hell." And they see him as this judge that wants to just punish. And that is not the case at all. Because of sin, holy God cannot be in the vicinity of sin. So there has to be a purification process. And that's what sacrifice and all of that was about in the Old Testament. That's what Jesus came to do on the cross, was be that final sacrifice for us. But the default um, destination for sin is separation from him. You talked earlier about this void, this darkness and this void that God gave you a vision of, and without love and grace and mercy and all of that, the absence of those things is evil and hatred and envy and death and die, everything bad. So what he's saying is, look, this is this is the default destination, and I have done everything that I can think of to try to come in and make it as easy as possible for you to take my hand. I've come in to save you from that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to cast you there. I'm saying that's where sin's going to lead you, and I'm trying to come in and rescue you from that. And we just can't get it through our heads that he is a God of love. And so is that how you feel on the inside, Mary? I mean, I probably know the answer, but I'd love to just hear you elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, like God at some point in my life, I hated God and questioned him. And, he's like, he couldn't love me because I'm just a terrible person. But once I gave him my heart, it was like he's never hated me. He's never been disappointed in me. He loves
Mhm.
me unconditionally, no matter what. he knows before I even do anything that I'm gonna mess up. I'm not
Yeah,
perfect.
right.
Otherwise, we'd all be Jesuses, and there's only
That's
those. And so, but he knows that, and his grace is sufficient for us. His mercy is never ending. His unfailing love is just everlasting to everlasting. And he just wants you to come to him. Just
yeah,
that's all he wants. He just wants to love us. He just
yeah.
wants to love us and take care of us and protect us and just grow in us. Yeah.
Mhm. And he's doing is he's asking us to choose him back.
Yes. And it's
He's already
it's our choice. And that's why he gave us our free will to choose him because
yeah,
he's always there. He's not going anywhere. It's our choice. And we just have to make that decision to
yeah,
choose him and love him. And look what he can do.
yeah, yeah. He I can say the same thing. I can look back on my life when I was making horrible choices or life altering choices that and I just didn't know better at the time. We do the best we can with what we know at the time.
Yeah.
And, but I say that God has the best drip campaign ever. It's like he just drips a little bit in as we can handle it. And we grow and we learn from that. We process that. We start to understand his love. And then he goes a little deeper and then a little deeper. And he just woos us and wins us to him in the most beautiful and profound ways. And once you have that relationship with him where when you're in the pits of hell or you're in the deepest, darkest valleys and you have no choice but to either turn your back on him completely or choose him. When you actually meet him in those valleys and you start to understand what relationship with him really is all about, it is life altering. And that I could see the same thing. I can look back at my life and see that I was on a spiral. I was circling the drain and he reached his hand out to me. And when I took it, that's when I can track back every good thing then that started happening in my life. All of a sudden you just get like this supernatural dose of you start to get wisdom and you start to get clarity and the smoke starts to clear and you're like, "Oh my gosh," you become aware of all of these things that are available to you that you just didn't see were there before. And it is just a beautiful if anyone's listening today that wants that, it is literally a breath away. He is as close as a whisper.
Yes.
And all you have to do is say, "Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus, I wanna know you like that. Teach me, show me how you love me. Show me how to love you back. And I believe in you, and I believe that I don't understand it all, but I believe that you climbed up on a cross to sacrifice for me, that you became sin and you took on my penalty. You took on all of my debts and all of my sentencing and all my penalty. And I don't understand it all, but I want to. So Lord, please help me to understand, help me to believe, and I welcome you into my heart today." And it is that simple.
Yes.
And and then he just starts to go to work in our lives, and it's beautiful. It's just so beautiful.
Yes. It is.
All right, Mary. So you are at Princeton,
Yeah.
and then all these news channels start coming calling. So tell us about what happened. Like you started making national news.
Yes, I did. So it started out TDOC, the Tennessee Department of Correction, and Persevere, the coding class that I was in prison, wanted to do just a little story in I guess their paper. I was like, sure. And then that went to News Channel 5 in Nashville. And then that went to Good Morning America and then Inside Edition, and it was on the New Jersey News, Cincinnati, something Goldcast, like I just looked the other day and it's on things I didn't even know about. So I was like, wow. And so yeah, I got a lot of media attention, which
That's God.
yeah,
That's God.
and that's God, and that's how quickly he works, and he's like, "I'm gonna give you back what the enemy took from you, that you were supposed to
Yeah.
be doing your whole life because you're mine."
Yes.
Yeah.
And you also probably discovered how smart you are. I mean, who can go I mean, I don't coding is like Greek to me. You probably are a lot I mean, you just start to understand gifts and talents that you have that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, I would've no, before, I would have never Princeton wouldn't even been a thought in my brain, but God was like, "Yeah," and so, yeah, coding is basically a whole 'nother language. It is very difficult, it is not for everyone, it is very challenging. Sometimes I wanted to throw the laptop out the window. multiple times a day, actually.
I'm sure. I'm sure you did.
Yeah. But
I
yeah,
wouldn't
a
have
lot of
even
great
known where to
resources.
start. I love it.
Yeah.
So you're on all these shows and your story's getting out and what was the feedback like from anyone? I mean, especially like anyone that you had known before in your former life. Anybody was there anybody that you inspired in your former life?
Actually, so I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, um, this girl that we lived in Chattanooga together and, we did all the bad things and stuff, and that's how we knew each other, been in jail and prison together. And I guess, the prison, the TDOC allowed them or whatever to give them a newspaper flipping about, "Hey, I went from prison to Princeton to T-Palm doing all this," and just had my name. And it was a different last name when I was in prison, but, so I'm at church, and she walks in, and she was and like, "You're the Mary that's been doing all this?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like and she starts crying. And she's like, "Oh my god, if you can do it, God's real, then I can do it." And that
Oh,
I busted out crying like a baby because that's what it's
yeah,
about. It's about showing
yeah,
other people that, yeah, God's real and look what he can do.
yes.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And he can heal. When we have those wounds as kids, they it's like something that's buried alive, and it's gonna continue to haunt us and rear its head, and you do everything you can to push it down and push that pain down, but when God comes into the picture, he knows how to dig that sucker up and crucify it and deal with it once and for all and actually heal our hearts and heal us and get us to the point where then we can accept the blessings in his life, and it's not because we deserve them, but we just understand his grace, and we understand his mercy, and we understand that we in our weakness, that's where he's strong. We're not saying, "Hey, look at me now. Hey, I'm strong. I'm all that in a bag of chips." No, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's, "Look at the hot mess that I was and
Yes.
how God has redeemed that."
Yeah. That's exactly how it is because my life was crazy, just a mess. And he came in and I mean, look what he's doing. It's only God. There's no other way than God.
He's the master physician and the master healer, and
Like,
he gives so many gifts.
yes.
So you get back and you're wondering what you're gonna do for a job, and then what happens?
So I didn't have one when I got back, but God put me in a place where he's like, it's going to be fine. And I knew it would be fine. And, yeah, but sometimes it's hard to just trust him. But I was like, I know it's going to be fine. I don't have to stress this. I went to some interviews and all that good stuff. And then Tennessee Prison Outreach Ministry, the executive director, Thomas Snow, he called well, he emailed me and was like, hey, I want to offer you this position. And I was like, this is only God. It's only God. And it's the full circle. It's the full circle place. I was there. I graduated. God worked in me and now I'm working for them, helping others. Just show them like, hey, this is possible. This can what happen. And I
Mm.
get back in the prison that I was at with all this. And so it's just,
Oh,
yeah, like, man, and it's only God. It's just
yeah.
God, and it's just sometimes it's overwhelmingly amazing, and I'm like and just I cry.
I'm crying.
Oh, no.
You make me cry all the time. I know. I in a good way. It's such a beautiful redemption story. It's just the most beautiful. Don't be surprised if one day a film company doesn't come calling and want to do a movie on you.
Well,
I'm very serious.
well,
These are the kinds of things that movies are made of. And this is the resurrecting power of God,
yeah,
giving us back everything that the enemy stole. And he takes our deepest wounds and heals them and and brings so much. It's almost like he just plants a garden in them,
yeah,
you know? And it's only he can do that. Only he knows how to do that. How to just bring so much beauty out of our deepest wounds.
yes,
And it is certainly the case with you. It's certainly the case with me with Lady Up. My deepest wound was my son, my adult son, and turning his back on me, and now here I am out here helping moms, in my deepest wound, God has brought beauty from that. And, it is just it is a profoundly beautiful process when we cooperate with him and we trust him and we let him lead and guide.
Yes.
It's nothing we can do on our own.
Oh, no. He took my mess and turned it into his message.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
Yep. Your becomes your testimony. Your
Yeah.
mess becomes your message. Yeah. And that's usually how you know. I mean, who better to come back and minister to these women and inspire these women than you?
Yeah.
I mean, God has put you in the perfect place to do that. And I just want to do a big round of applause to T-Palm
Yeah.
for being there for women. And you guys are expanding there. So let's just give them a plug here real quick before we let you go. I know you guys are trying to expand. So tell people what they could do to help there.
Okay, so right now we have a transition home for women and men. We have one transition home in Memphis, and then we have a step down house for men. So after they graduate the transition house, the men can go to the step down house, which continues to give them the support and encouragement and stability that they need to continue on until they can save up money and get their own place. And
Mhm.
it's not like it has as much going on as the transition house with the programming and stuff. So now we would like to build the women's house, which would hold 16 women so that they can continue to grow and change their lives. And through all this, when you come out of incarceration and you do all these things, it's not about all necessarily the recidivism rate. It's about changing the person so that they can go out and change the community, which is
Mhm.
what they have TPOM allowed me to do. And that women's transition house, it's going to be 16 women that get to change their lives, their families' lives, and the communities, and just help them grow and get loved on and just let Jesus have his way with them. And so,
Yeah.
yes, we need some funds for the women's house.
And so how long is the transition process, and then how long can they stay in the step down house?
So the transitions is 4 to 6 months, just depending on where you're at. And because, sometimes it takes a little time for others than some others. And then the step down house, they can stay for a year.
Okay.
That's a whole year that they don't have to worry about a place to live. It doesn't matter about, they can't pass a credit check or a background check. It's a
Yeah.
home for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, if you don't have your home in order, everything else is in disarray.
Yeah.
If you don't know where you're gonna be laying your head that night and you don't know where your next meal is coming from, then how can you plan your future?
Yeah.
It's so difficult to do that. So this gives some stability
Yes.
when you first come out and a chance to just catch your breath and make some plans. People are coming out of prison every day and going back into the community. And one of the things that I learned from working with the BEST program is that the recidivism rate, which means basically the revolving door where they end up back in and, in and out, in and out, in and out, that is so unbelievably high.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize that here in Tennessee, it's almost $30,000 a year. It's like 28,000 a year, something like that, to incarcerate someone, to pay for their
Yeah.
expenses to incarcerate them.
Yes, it's insane how much money it does cost that the prison systems to keep one person, and
Yeah.
their recidivism rate is not wonderful. Now ours is 10%, so we've had over
Wow.
250 graduates, and so this expansion could just help so many more people and change so many more lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you could handle more than 16 people, but that's probably about how many people come out of the Tennessee prisons, and you may not know that right off the top of your head, but do you have an idea of how many people are in need versus how many you can help with just 16 rooms?
Well, now that's there's a lot coming out daily, so we can do 16 men, 16 women, and then we have the I wanna say it holds 8 at the transition house in Memphis, but I may be wrong on that. But so that's a very small number, but for the need, there's other programs that are out there, but none do the full service, like, we do men and women, and so that's very hard to have. And we're
Yeah.
actually, the top transition home in Tennessee, and TDOC approved, so they don't have to worry about parole. Everything's just together with a nice bow on it. So it takes
Yeah.
the stress and pressure off of them because it's a lot when you come out and you have
Yeah.
nowhere to go and you've been under these rules and things. And now you're overwhelmed and like, I don't even know how to get a license. I'm not from Nashville. And
Yeah.
just, it's a great little stepping stone to get them settled. We help them get a job. And so if that, with that women's house, they can continue to stay in Nashville, keep that job, keep building, keep growing their, love for Jesus and networking. And it's very needed.
Yeah. So you're on your feet, you're out, you've got all this education behind you now, and you're still in school. So
Yes.
you're gonna be getting another degree?
Yeah, I'm still in Nashville State getting my associate's degree for business management and administration.
I love it. And got a steady income coming in now. You've
Yes.
got a place to lay your head, you've got a car, you're up and running, and I could not possibly be more proud of you.
Thank you very much. You mean the world to me. Like that connection that God just gave me with you I knew you're an amazing woman.
Oh, so are you, Mary. So
Thank
are
you.
you. You just didn't realize it. Underneath all of that trash that had just been heaped on you all your life, all underneath all that, there was a diamond under there, and I saw it. I saw the little sparkles coming out of you. I knew it, and and I love what God has done. I just love I stories like this just they just reconfirm for those of us who love him. It's just a again, another validation, not that we need it, but it is just another beautiful validation and confirmation that Jesus is always working, always working. There is no pit that anybody is in that is so deep that his hand can't reach in there and pull you out when we just choose him,
Yes.
and it's precious. So if people want to contribute to TPOM, they wanna get involved and they wanna get behind your efforts there, how do they do that?
So we have the website that has the donate button on there. There's Cash App at TPOM. We take checks, money orders, cash, all that good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So TPOM. So what's the website address? And we'll send people there in the show link.
It's www.tpom.org.
So TPOM.
Yes.
T like Tom, P like Paul for those who are driving around listening right now. OM like Mary. So tpom.org.
Yes.
So please, those folks listening that have been touched and inspired by this today, go and drop some money in the kitty there as much as you can and help Mary to help these men and women to transition like she has and to fulfill their God-given potential. It's incredible work. I love it. I just can't wait to see what happens next in your life. God's like on a roll with you. And it's fun to watch, it really is. Thank you so much for being with me today and for being so open and vulnerable and willing to share all the gory details, the nitty-gritty of your story. That takes a lot of courage and, a lot of humility, but it also takes a lot of bravery. So thank you for doing that, Mary.
Thank you for having me on here. And it's all just to show hope that nothing's impossible with God.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, we'll be having you back on soon to hear the next chapter in your story. So thanks again for being on. All right, ladies, thank you for tuning in today. I hope this has been an incredible blessing for you. It has for me. Just reach out. If you don't know Jesus yet, reach out. His hand is there for you and he can transform your life. It's not about him being a celestial Santa Claus. It's not about what he's going to give you, what you can get out of him. No, he just wants your heart and then trust him to work out his plan for you, whatever that might be. It's not always going to be sunshine and roses. There's going to be hard days ahead. Adversity can be used, but when we're walking with him, we're not walking alone. We're never in it alone, and he will bring beauty from ashes every time. That's his promise to us in the Bible. All right, I will see you next time. Lady up.